But that was about the closest we had until we had the founding of America. And we have here what is called a representative democracy. We vote our representatives in with a majority vote, but then they represent us in theory. And as we talked about in our last session, they are not representing us very well. Many of the polls today indicate that 60, 70, sometimes 80% of the people are angry with the way our representatives are voting. When our representatives vote against 70% of the public will, that is not very close to a democracy. Yet our country, the United States of America, is perhaps the closest in the history of the world to a government that does truly represent the people. But unfortunately, we have come short of it, and we're coming shorter and shorter. There have been times in our history where representatives have come pretty close to representing the people, where the people have been relatively happy with how things have been going and how the vote has gone. But we're in an age right now where the people are not happy at all. You have two types of government. There's only two types possible: majority rule and minority rule. And throughout the history of this planet, we've only had minority rule. We've never had a true majority rule in the whole history of the planet Earth. It's just never happened. We've attempted it. We've come close a couple times, but each time we have fallen short. For one thing, in order to have a majority rule, we need a pretty sophisticated civilization with significant technology. Back in the days of the founding of this country, they couldn't really implement a majority rule as Jefferson wanted, because it was impossible to tabulate vote on a regular basis as to what the majority would really want on something. This is one of the reasons we went with a representative government, because it was impossible with the technology they had at that time to actually implement a majority vote. It would have caused tremendous disruption in our society. So they did the next best thing. They created a representative government. So we elect representatives, they go to Congress, and they didn't need any television or radio or telephones or any type of communication like we have today. They all met in one place and they represented us. And if we were to do it all over again, we'd probably have to do it that way, even if we believe in a majority rule. Now, Jefferson believed in a majority rule, but he supported the representative government because he felt that that was the best thing they could produce. The closest to majority rule would be the representative government that they actually put together. So he was happy that that was the best thing they could do at that time. But if he were alive today, and if he were surfing the internet and saw all the technology that we had today, do you think he'd be happy with what we have? Do you think he would think the majority is represented? Because he even said he would go along with the majority even if he didn't agree. That's how much he believed in majority rule. So if he were alive today, I think he would say, hey, we need to create something better. We live in an age now where we have the technology available to create a true majority rule. And the beauty of the majority rule is the majority have a certain amount of common sense that many in the minority do not have. So this is an important point, is the majority rule is the path of safety. We could have never had a Hitler under a majority rule. I shouldn't say never. Anything is possible. It's possible to for some type of mass deception if he had complete control of the media and everything. Matter of fact, that's the first thing a dictator does. He assumes control of the media. And then he uses the media to make it look like the majority supports him, even when they do not. Now, the interesting thing is the people themselves desire a majority rule. But they desire to be heard. Even those that are really adamant about keeping the republic just the way it is, even though the failures they think a majority rule will bring are happening under the republic right now, even these people are grumbling that their voice is not being heard. The people are wanting their voice to be heard more now than any other time. Matter of fact, the main reason for the rise of the Tea Party is these people feel that their voice is not being heard, that they want an responsibility with spending and taxes. They just want the government to be responsible. Now, on the other side of the spectrum, even they want responsibility with spending, but just have different ideas as to how money should be spent. But the majority of the people have a strong sense that there's something wrong, very terribly wrong, with how we are spending ourselves into oblivion. We're spending our children's and our grandchildren's money, and the majority is definitely against this happening. So there is a vast cry out there in our country, in the heart of our country, for responsibility, because the majority senses a need for our government to be responsible. And then we send these guys into power, and they seem to be more irresponsible than a teenager with a blank check. I mean, it just amazes us over and over and over. This seems to happen. What happens when they go to Congress? We covered this last time, and I'll review it quite quickly and then add a couple more points. We hire like Joe Jones or somebody, or Jim Smith, and we send him off to Congress, and we think he's going to vote the way we want, and then all of a sudden he seems to change. Now, why does he change? One of the reasons he changes is there is in any group what I call a group think. You go to any group, you join any society, and you'll find that group has a certain way of doing things. You go to any church and sit in Sunday school or whatever, and you'll find, if you go to the different churches, that each church has a different, certain way of thinking. Now, if you go to a political party or a political convention, you'll find they have a certain type of what we call group think. And what's interesting is that people pick up this group thought. You just pick it up. It's like we have a natural psychic ability that we don't really recognize to pick this up. And when you're with a group that thinks a certain way, you tend to not want to buck the system. Now, I'm a little bit different that way. I like to go into groups and ask questions that go completely contrary to what the people are thinking. And it's fun to watch their reaction, because it really doesn't happen very often. Because even people that think a certain way and they go to a group that thinks the opposite of them, they usually just sit quiet and don't create any stir, and often will talk like they agree with what's going on. It's the power of group thought. The group thought is a tremendous power. And there's probably very few places on earth, maybe no place, that has this groupthink more powerful than Washington, D.C.